There was a time when I believed money was out there, somewhere far beyond me. I believed I had to chase it, earn it, beg it, or hope it would somehow fall into my lap. I thought the rich had some secret code, some advantage, some privilege I didn't possess. But I was wrong. The moment I changed my mind, reality changed with it. And it wasn't a mountain I climbed. It wasn't a degree I earned. It wasn't a connection I formed. It was 3 simple words whispered in the silence of my imagination. These words became a fire in my soul. They didn't just change my mindset, they changed my entire world. You see, the world doesn't respond to your wishes, it responds to your assumption. It bends not to your hard work, but to your consciousness. The bank account, the cars, the homes, the headlines, they're reflections of what you accept as true in the unseen realm. And here is the greatest irony. When I stopped trying to get rich, when I stopped chasing and started believing, when I finally dared to feel the reality of my desire without any evidence, it came. Not slowly, not in pieces, but as a flood. I didn't earn $68 million through logic, labor, or luck. I received it through law, the law of consciousness. I allowed it. I became it. I embodied the wealth long before the world confirmed it. Let me tell you the truth. The world hides behind bank doors and financial gurus. Money is energy. Its vibration is thought clothed in form. And when you speak to the universe from a place of knowing, not hoping, not wanting, but knowing, the universe moves. You don't get what you want. You get what you believe is already yours. That's the game. The moment I whispered those 3 words to myself, not out loud, not to impress, but deep within, in the sanctuary of my inner world, things shifted. My body felt it first. The energy changed. My spine straightened. My heart opened. My doubt died. And before the checks came, before the contracts were signed, before the balance hit the account, I had already become the millionaire. I had already walked the halls of my mansion in imagination. I had already heard the sound of my own footsteps echoing through marble floors. I had already bought the cars, gifted the home, celebrated the success, all within the sacred space of mind. Those 3 words became the cornerstone of my inner temple. They weren't magic in the fairy tale sense. They were magic in the law sense, because they aligned me with the frequency of abundance. Now let me share the process, not as a theory, but as a testimony, not as advice, but as a revelation. Here are the 3 pillars of that manifestation, each rooted in one of those powerful words. I am ready. The doorway to receiving. The most dangerous lie we are taught about wealth is that it only comes to those who struggle endlessly for it, those who break themselves in the pursuit of it, those who wait endlessly for some mysterious external permission. But wealth doesn't respond to desperation, it responds to readiness. And readiness is not just a feeling, it is a spiritual stance. It is a vibration, it is a declaration that says to the universe, I no longer wait, I no longer doubt, I no longer postpone the arrival of what is already mine. When I whispered the words, I am ready, something ancient shifted inside me. I could feel the chains of hesitation cracking. I realized I had been standing at the door of abundance with my hands in my pockets, refusing to knock, refusing to walk through. I was staring at the promised land, yet behaving like a beggar outside the gate. All because I didn't feel ready. But the truth is, you become ready the moment you decide you are. Readiness is not something granted by fate or confirmed by your circumstances. It is claimed boldly, quietly, spiritually. Most people say they want wealth, but they're not truly ready to carry the identity of the wealthy. They haven't trained their nervous system to hold expansion. They want the number in the bank, but they fear the change it will demand. They crave the lifestyle, but they resist the energetic shift that comes with it. And this resistance creates static in the signal. It sends mixed messages to the infinite source. The frequency of desire is not enough. You must match it with the frequency of readiness. When I declared I am ready, it was not because I had already achieved some milestone. It wasn't because someone else confirmed I deserved it. It was because I finally let go of the inner debate, the tug of war between am I enough and will it come, dissolved. I entered the stillness where all manifestation begins. And from that stillness, I made the only declaration that truly matters in the spiritual economy of wealth. I am no longer preparing. I am ready. And that declaration did not return void. The beauty of I am ready is that it doesn't rely on proof. It is not a reaction to evidence, it is the evidence. When you say those words from your center, not from your throat, not from your head, but from your soul, you send out a signal that the universe cannot ignore. Because spiritual laws don't respond to how much you want something, they respond to how much you become it. And I am ready is the code that unlocks the alignment. But here's what you must understand. Being ready does not mean being perfect. It doesn't mean having all your ducks in a row. It doesn't mean never feeling fear again. It means that your faith now outweighs your doubt. It means that your identity is no longer entangled with lack. It means that your imagination has visited the wealth so often that your body begins to believe it's already here. I remember the morning I said it aloud in my room, not to perform, not to manifest overnight success. I said it as an agreement with my higher self. I whispered, I am ready, and then sat in silence. And in that silence, something powerful happened. I saw a new version of myself standing before me, confident, certain, calm, not chasing, not proving, just existing, as if the wealth had already arrived. That was the seed moment. And just like a seed planted beneath the soil, nothing changed on the surface at first. But deep beneath what the eyes could see, roots were forming. The invisible had been activated. The vibration had shifted, and the physical world had no choice but to catch up. You see, so many are waiting for the perfect time to declare their readiness. They believe they must first pay off their debts, heal all their wounds, or become some ideal version of themselves. But the spiritual path is not about perfection. It is about position. Are you positioned in belief? Are you positioned in receiving? Are you positioned in now? Most walk through life saying, I want wealth, but they walk like the poor, they talk like the uncertain, they think like the broken. That is not readiness, that is contradiction. And contradiction blocks miracles. But when I shifted to I am ready, everything began to align. Not because I became someone else, but because I remembered who I had always been. A divine creator, capable of receiving all that I was willing to believe in. The doors that had long remained locked started opening, not because I forced them open, but because I finally held the key. That key wasn't effort, it wasn't strategy, it was embodiment. When you say, I am ready, you must feel it in your spine. You must carry it into your day. You must treat every moment like proof that the wealth is already making its way to you. You begin walking differently, speaking differently. You stop talking about what you lack and start envisioning what you already possess in consciousness. And it is in that invisible possession that the visible wealth appears. The moment you say, I am ready, The question is no longer whether you can have it, but whether you can hold it. Can you hold the energy of having without having? Can you walk with the posture of wealth while your reality still mirrors poverty? That is the test. That is the shift. That is the magic. And let me tell you, the universe does not resist readiness. It responds to it with precision. It begins to move people, events, ideas, and circumstances into position the moment it detects a soul that is no longer doubting. I am ready is not passive. It is not hopeful. It is a warrior's cry from the inner world. It is you stepping into your throne and saying, I don't need evidence to know who I am. That is power. That is creation. That is the beginning of millions. Every time I repeated it, whether in my car, in my mirror, in meditation, or in the face of fear, I was watering the seed. And eventually that seed cracked open and spilled a harvest so abundant, I still wake up in awe. So if you're reading this and asking yourself, why hasn't it come yet? Check your inner dialogue. Are you still saying, I'm trying? Are you still waiting for some sign that you're allowed to receive? Or are you ready to speak from a deeper place and say, with unwavering certainty, I am ready. I am worthy, the magnet of millions. There is a silent war happening inside many people, and most never speak about it. On the outside, they affirm, visualize, and say all the right words, but deep inside, there's a whisper, a subtle resistance, a quiet self-rejection, a belief too painful to admit. Am I really worthy of this? This is why so many people fail to manifest wealth, not because they don't want it, not because they don't dream, but because they don't believe they are worthy of receiving it. And until that core belief is transformed, all efforts will remain blocked by the invisible wall of unworthiness. I didn't receive $68 million just because I said, I am ready. That was the opening. But the current, the power, the magnetism came when I declared with conviction, I am worthy. It wasn't a casual phrase. It was a healing. It was a reclamation of truth. It was a violent tearing away from the lie that had lived in me for years. That somehow I had to earn permission to be abundant. Let me tell you something radical. You don't earn worth. You are worth. The universe isn't withholding wealth to punish you. It's simply responding to your vibration. If your vibration is soaked in guilt, self-doubt, shame, or unworthiness, then even your most powerful affirmations will be muted by contradiction. The outside world cannot give you what your inner world won't allow. When I said I am worthy, something within me trembled. It was almost uncomfortable at first, like trying to wear clothes that didn't fit, because for so long I had identified with lack. I had made friends with struggle. I had normalized scarcity, and to speak the words I am worthy was to tear down that identity. But here is the power of this declaration. It reshapes your reality by reshaping your self-image. Until you believe you are worthy of a different life, you will sabotage the very thing you're trying to attract. You'll block it, delay it, shrink it, or give it away, because you will always return to the level of abundance that matches your sense of worth. That's not punishment. It's spiritual physics. So how do you increase your worthiness? You don't wait for someone else to tell you. You don't beg God for confirmation. You don't compare yourself to others who seem more deserving. You choose. That's it. You choose to agree with the divine truth that you were made in the image of infinite abundance, and therefore lack is unnatural to your soul. When I sat in silence and whispered, I am worthy, I began to see flashes of memories, moments from my past where I was made to feel small, inferior, broken, unwanted. I didn't run from them, I let them surface. And then I spoke again, this time louder, firmer, I am worthy, not in spite of my past, but because I had survived it. Your worthiness is not defined by your resume, your bank balance, or your past mistakes. It is defined by your existence, and once you claim it, really claim it, you become unshakable. Because the world can no longer manipulate you through fear or approval. You no longer need to chase what you're already aligned with. That's when things began to accelerate for me. People started responding differently. Opportunities appeared without effort. I stopped chasing and started attracting. Why? Because I had become a magnet for what I believed I deserved. Not just mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. There's a difference between repeating an affirmation and becoming it. Most people never bridge that gap. They say, I'm worthy, but they don't feel it in their body. Like they don't carry it in their posture. They don't breathe it in their silence. And the universe can only reflect what you feel, not what you merely say. So how did I train myself to feel worthy? I started with imagination. I would sit in meditation and see myself walking through rooms of wealth, signing million-dollar deals, gifting homes, donating millions, building schools, funding dreams, not to feed my ego, but to normalize the frequency of wealth. I didn't just visualize it, I allowed myself to feel the emotional state of being worthy of it all. At first it was difficult. My inner critic screamed, old beliefs resurfaced, but I didn't give up. I returned to the seat of my soul every day and declared it again, I am worthy. And eventually the critic grew quiet, the resistance weakened, my vibration began to match the abundance I had always dreamed of, and then the outer world responded. I receive emails out of nowhere, people wanting to collaborate, to invest, to build. I walked into rooms I never thought I'd enter. I sat at tables that used to intimidate me, and I didn't feel like an outsider. I didn't feel like I had snuck in. I felt at home because I was finally seated in my worth. Understand this, worthiness is not arrogance, it's alignment. Arrogance says, I'm better than others. Worthiness says, I belong here too. It's not about superiority, it's about sufficiency. And when you live from sufficiency, you stop needing to prove, to force, to beg. And you know what else happens? You start to make better decisions. You stop accepting crumbs. You stop entering relationships that drain you. You stop tolerating jobs that shrink you. Because your inner compass shifts. You begin to walk like someone who knows that the universe is not testing you, it's partnering with you. Because worthy becomes more than a statement. It becomes a filter. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, does this reflect my worth? You stop asking, why hasn't it happened yet? And start affirming, it's already mine in the unseen. You stop trying to get wealth and start revealing it, because you realize it's already encoded into who you are. This is the vibration that manifested $68 million for me. Not the amount of time I spent hustling, not the number of people I convinced, but the silent, unwavering decision to believe I am worthy of wealth, ease, overflow, and abundance because I exist. And once I lived from that state, the floodgates opened. Because the universe is not stingy, it's responsive. It has always been waiting for you to stop asking if you're enough and start living. as if you are. I am worthy is not just a phrase. It's a revolution. It's the moment you stop looking outward and start claiming inward. And when that happens, wealth no longer becomes something you chase. It becomes something that recognizes you. It starts showing up in unexpected ways because now it sees a home in you. It senses that it can stay. It no longer has to fight your inner saboteur. It no longer has to knock on doors that aren't open. Because now your energy says, welcome home. That's the secret no one teaches. They'll tell you how to sell, how to pitch, how to market, but they won't teach you how to feel. They won't tell you that the most magnetic energy in the world is a soul who walks in worthiness, one who no longer apologizes for their light, one who no longer hides their bigness, one who no longer makes themselves smaller just to fit into broken systems of scarcity. And if you're still doubting today, let me say this to you clearly. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too far gone. You don't need to fix yourself before you receive. You don't need more degrees, more followers, more approval. You just need this one decision to believe that you are already enough. Because that's when wealth recognizes you. That's when the doors begin to open. That's when the silence becomes filled with sudden miracles. When you say, I am worthy and mean it, not in your head, but in your bones, you stop chasing money and money starts chasing you. I receive now the trigger of manifestation. The final and most powerful phrase in the Trinity of Wealth is this: I receive now. 3 words that, when spoken with authority, don't just create ripples, they send waves through the spiritual realm. Not I will receive, not when day, not when I'm finally ready, but now, in this moment. And this is where most people miss the miracle. They stretch their blessings into the future, they push their wealth beyond the horizon, they believe it's coming, but they don't allow it to come now. And so, like a carrot forever hanging just out of reach, their abundance becomes a concept rather than a reality. But the law is clear. Creation is finished. All things you could ever want, every dollar, every asset, every luxury, every opportunity already exists in the unseen. There is no delay in the spiritual world. Delay is only a product of your belief in time, and time only obeys the mind that commands it. And the reason is delay. Glue thinks he can productively and believe it to be. When I said I receive now, I collapsed time. I stopped waiting, I stopped hoping, I stopped believing that my manifestation was on some distant train slowly making its way toward me. I realized I was the train, I was the track, I was the destination. Everything I desired wasn't out there, it was here, waiting for me to say the one thing that gives permission. Now. This single word changed everything. We are taught from childhood to wait. Wait your turn. Wait until you're good enough. Wait until you've earned it. Wait until you've proven yourself. But spiritual wealth doesn't operate like a school system. It doesn't grade you. It doesn't hold back to test your effort. It waits for only one signal, the energy of allowance. I receive now is the frequency of allowance. It is the moment you step beyond want into having. And you can only live in having if you embody the now. That's where manifestation lives. Not in the future, but in the present. Not in the chase, but in the claim. When I whispered, I receive now, I wasn't lying to myself. I wasn't pretending. I was agreeing with the higher truth that what I desire is already mine in consciousness. I wasn't waiting for the bank notification. I became the notification. I didn't need to see the contract. I was already signing it in imagination. And because the spiritual world obeys imagination, it had no choice but to bring the substance into form. Let me be clear. The moment you say, I receive now, with full emotional certainty, the manifestation process is complete. The physical reality must catch up. It's not a question of if, but how quickly. And that speed is determined by how completely you detach from waiting. Waiting energy is repellent. It sends a message of absence. It says, I don't have it yet, which is a lie to the soul. But receiving energy is magnetic. It says, it is done. And once that is felt in your nervous system, not just thought in your head, it becomes real. I receive now taught me to live from the end, not toward it, but from it. And that shift from becoming to being is what turned spiritual vision into material wealth. Let's go deeper. When you say, I receive now, you must act as if it is so. That doesn't mean go spend money you don't yet see. It means walk in the posture of someone who has already received. Your thoughts change. Your tone changes. Your fears dissolve. Your gratitude grows. Because you're no longer begging for change. You're stabilizing the change that already occurred in the unseen. The real question is this: can you carry the vibration of already having it before anyone else sees it? That's the test. And I assure you, if you can, the universe will rearrange itself to match your frequency. People will show up. Checks will arrive. Doors will open. But they won't be the cause of your receiving. They will be the confirmation. This is how wealth manifested in my life. Not in steps, but in shifts. I didn't work harder. I didn't chase louder. I stopped vibrating with lack. I left the waiting room of reality and I stepped into the now. I started walking into rooms like I had already been invited. I started talking to myself like I had already received the phone call. I started treating my imagination as the real place and the 3D world as the echo. And the moment I stopped looking at my bank balance for evidence and instead felt the wealth already flooding my life, I entered the stream. Do you know what happens when you live in the energy of I receive now? You stop arguing with life. You stop wrestling with doubt. You stop asking when, and you start saying thank you. And this thank you is not a tactic. It's a vibration. It's an inner knowing that causes heaven and earth to respond. Because what you're truly doing when you say, I receive now, is stepping into oneness. You and the desire are no longer separate. There is no distance. There is no gap. There is only resonance. And that's the birthplace of miracles. Many people think the words alone are magic, but they're not. The power is in the alignment behind the words. If you say, I receive now, but still live in doubt, the universe hears the doubt, not the declaration. But if you say it and feel it like it's oxygen, like it's memory, like it's already here, then nothing can stop what's already set in motion. That's why I speak these words often. Not because I'm trying to get something, but because I'm training my being to live in the vibration of already having it. I don't need a reason to say them. I say them to stabilize the frequency. I say them when I wake up. I say them when fear whispers. I say them when nothing seems to be moving. Because movement starts in the invisible. And those three words, I receive now, are the command. They tell life, you're not late, you're not early, you're exactly on time. They tell your nervous system, you are safe to let go of striving. They tell your future, you're no longer ahead, you're here. Let me ask you this and ask it honestly. Can you live today as if the millions have already arrived? Can you speak with peace instead of panic? Can you give thanks as if it's already in your hands? Can you carry joy without needing proof? That is the standard of spiritual wealth. That is the secret that turns desire into possession. That is the moment your old self dies and your new self is born. And that's what I did, again and again, until $68 million, 0 cents, became not just a possibility, but a memory returning home. So here is the mystery revealed. Your words are not mere affirmations. They are invitations. And when you say, I receive now, the universe does not hesitate. It doesn't delay. It doesn't ask questions. It moves. Because finally you've moved. It was never luck. It was never timing. It was never some hidden advantage, secret mentor, or complex strategy that brought me wealth. It was alignment. It was surrender. It was the sacred decision to become the wealth before the world ever saw it, to embody the end before the beginning even made sense. I chose to speak the language of the universe, not with panic, not with desperation, but with presence. 3 words. That's all it took. But they weren't just repeated, they were embodied. Not just spoken, they were believed. Not merely imagined, they were deeply felt. I am ready. I am worthy. I receive now. These aren't magic spells. They are mirrors. They reflect the truth of who you've always been, beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the conditioning. These words are not formulas, they are keys. Keys to unlock the abundance that was never lost, only forgotten in the shadows of doubt. I didn't manifest $68 million to impress the world or to feel superior. I did it to prove that reality isn't shaped by effort alone, it's shaped by identity. I did it to remember who I am, and I share it now to remind you of who you are. Because this isn't just my story, it's your permission slip. It's your awakening. It's your invitation to stop waiting, to stop wondering, to stop chasing. All you have to do is return. Return to the truth that what you seek is already seeking you. What you dream of is dreaming of you. The wealth you long for is not outside. It's within. It's waiting patiently for you to speak the words that open the gates. Say them with your whole being. Let them live in your posture, your voice, your breath. Say them until you forget what it ever felt like to doubt. I am ready. I am worthy. I receive now. And then simply watch what happens. The world may have counted you out. You might feel like your fall was too great, your setback too final, your failure too loud. They may have pointed fingers, whispered doubts, and turned their backs on you in silence. But let me remind you of a truth deeper than the pain, stronger than their laughter, and more real than the circumstances that broke you. Your comeback is not just possible, it is inevitable. If you dare to believe. You are not defined by your past, not by the betrayal, not by the mistake, not by the delay. What defines you is what you imagine now. Every great transformation begins not with effort, but with an inner assumption, the quiet acceptance that something greater is unfolding, and you are the vessel through which it must come. You don't need to fight the past or struggle to prove anything. All you must do is return to the secret place within, where your true power has never been touched by failure or rejection. There is a law higher than logic. It is the law of assumption. The moment you begin to see yourself differently, everything begins to change. Not in the outer world first, but in the invisible realm of consciousness. You were never meant to stay in the pit. You were meant to learn that even from the depths, the soul can imagine itself into greatness again. Your comeback begins the moment you dare to feel what it's like to already have risen. You see, nothing outside you has the power to define what's next. Not the money you lost, not the love that left, not the opportunity that slipped through your fingers. The moment you decide to dwell in the feeling of triumph, of restoration, of peace, life begins to conform. You don't climb back up through willpower alone. You ascend through alignment. Alignment with the version of you who never gave up, who kept believing even when the world gave no reason to believe. You may not know how. The mind will ask questions. How will I get there? Who will help me? When will it happen? But these are distractions. The only true work is to persist in the inner image, the inner knowing that it is already done. You are not here to beg reality to give you another chance. You are here to command your reality by walking in the conviction that the second act of your life will eclipse the first. If life broke you, good. Now it will see you rise, not with bitterness, not with revenge, but with the quiet power of someone who remembered who they are. Do not wait for signs, become the sign. Do not wait for people to believe in you. Believe in yourself so completely that reality must rearrange itself to match your inner state. There is nothing more magnetic than a soul certain of its own rebirth. Walk differently. Talk differently, not with arrogance, but with a calm assurance that the comeback has already begun. Let the world think what it wants. You are not here to convince anyone. You are here to experience the beauty of turning wounds into wisdom and setbacks into setups. The world may have seen you fall, but only you will know the secret of your rise. That it began in silence, in stillness, in imagination. Do not be deceived by appearances. The struggle may still be visible, the doubt may still echo in the background, but they are fading echoes of a former reality. Hold your vision, nourish it with feeling. Let it grow roots so deep within you that no storm can shake it. And when your time comes, it won't feel like a miracle. It will feel like the natural next step of someone who never stopped seeing beyond the pain. So come back. Come back stronger, wiser, softer, but more powerful. Come back without needing applause. Come back with quiet fire. Come back as the version of yourself that you've already met in your imagination, because once you've seen it within, the world has no choice but to see it too. The comeback begins in imagination, not in action. This is the secret that most overlook. In the race to fix, to prove, to rebuild, we often run straight into the arms of effort, forgetting that everything we touch with our hands was once held in the mind. The comeback is not something you chase outside. It is something you conceive within. Before the world ever knows that you're rising, you must first know it in yourself, deeply, quietly, and completely. Not as a wish, but as a feeling you dare to call real before it ever shows its face. What's broken in your life didn't break your power. It didn't break your ability to imagine something greater. If anything, it gave you the raw space to begin again. But not from fear, not from desperation, from stillness, from vision, and most importantly, from the bold act of assuming that what was lost is already restored, better, higher, and richer than before. This assumption, this inner knowing, is not just a comfort, it is the birthplace of transformation. When you sit with your eyes closed and feel what it's like to have already come through the fire, something shifts. You align with a reality that is waiting for your belief to bring it forth. Most people delay their comeback by waiting waiting for the apology, waiting for the opportunity, waiting for someone to notice their pain. But imagination doesn't wait. It creates. And it creates with absolute authority. When you begin to live inwardly in the world you desire, even when all evidence points to the opposite, you set a divine law in motion. What is felt as true within must eventually take shape without. That's not hope. That's spiritual physics. And the moment you truly grasp this, you stop asking, when will it happen? And you begin to ask, how deeply can I feel it now? The mind wants proof. It wants to see first and then believe. But the soul, the part of you that speaks through desire and vision, knows the opposite is true. You must believe it before you ever see it. The real comeback doesn't begin when circumstances change. It begins when you change. When you stop identifying with the version of yourself that failed or suffered and begin identifying with the version of you who already overcame. You walk like them, you think like them, you react like them, and most importantly, you feel like them. This inner performance is not an act. It is a rehearsal for a reality that is already yours in the unseen. Think for a moment about how often you've imagined the worst, how you've replayed betrayal, regret, loss, not just as memories, but as identities. Now realize, if your mind was powerful enough to bind you with what you feared, it is equally, no, infinitely more powerful to release you with what you desire. But it must be practiced. You must close your eyes to the world of the senses and open your inner eye to the world of your making, and not just once, daily, moment by moment. You must become pregnant with the feeling of your return until it is so familiar that you can no longer separate yourself from it. You are not begging life to give you another chance. You are deciding that your next chapter already exists and you're simply stepping into alignment with it. You are not climbing your way back through grit alone. You are gliding your way forward through vision. The moment you choose to live in the end, to feel what it would be like to already have what your heart aches for, you break the chains of delay and summon the forces of acceleration. Life responds not to what you want, but to who you are willing to become within. Even if nothing changes around you yet, everything is already changing within you. And that shift is the true comeback. It's invisible, it's quiet, it's sacred. You will start to walk differently, not because of arrogance, but because you are carrying a secret that the world has not yet seen. You have seen the finish line, and now every step is merely catching up to what's already done in the unseen. This is not denial of reality. It is the deeper embrace of a higher one. So sit in the silence. Sit with the version of yourself who never fell, or rather, the version who fell and rose anyway. Let your imagination sculpt every detail of your comeback, where you are, who you are with, how you feel, what you become. Not as fantasy, but as rehearsal. Life is waiting on your decision to stop worshipping what broke you and begin celebrating what's birthing through you. You are not the same person you were. Not because of the wounds, but because of the vision you now carry. This isn't just manifestation, it is the art of remembering who you are. And once you remember, the comeback is no longer something distant. It is already in motion, already alive, already unfolding through the quiet, daily act of imagining. That is where the miracle begins. That is where the impossible becomes inevitable. And that is where your return to greatness finds its roots. Not in action, but in awareness. Not in struggle, but in certainty. Not in the outer world, but in the sacred theater of your inner world, where you write the script, play the role, and call forth a reality that cannot be denied. Persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is the key to unlocking everything you have ever longed for. It is not enough to merely imagine once, to wish fleetingly, or to dip your toe into the waters of belief. You must live there. You must remain, abide, dwell in that sacred feeling as though it were already yours. Not just occasionally, but constantly, like the breath in your lungs or the rhythm of your heartbeat. The feeling of already having what you seek must become your natural state. That feeling, pure, certain, grounded, is the birthplace of all manifestation. But this isn't about pretending or trying to trick the universe. This is about knowing so deeply that your entire nervous system begins to respond to the reality you have chosen to accept within. The world outside may still look the same. It may reflect the old story for a while, but you are not responding to that world anymore. You are responding only to the world within, the world where the wish is already fulfilled, the promise already kept, the miracle already made manifest. Most people waver. They enter the state of the wish fulfilled for a moment, then slip back into doubt, fear, and lack. They look at their bank account, their relationships, their bodies, and they measure their belief by what they see. But true faith, living, creative, unstoppable faith, does not look outside for validation. It plants its roots in the unseen and refuses to be moved by appearances. It does not argue with delay. It does not negotiate with fear. It simply remains. And in that remaining, in that holy persistence, something divine begins to take shape. This is not about doing more. It is not about hustle or effort or trying to force the dream into existence. That kind of striving is what the world teaches, a gospel of exhaustion. But in the realm of the spirit, the work is inner. The labor is stillness. The victory is surrender. You persist not with clenched fists, but with open hands and a calm heart. You surrender the old self, the one who needed proof, and embrace the new self who lives as if the proof already exists. Feel it now, not later, not when the circumstances change, not when you're finally noticed or appreciated or rewarded. Feel it now, in the quiet moments when no one sees, when no one believes, when even your own mind wants to drag you back into doubt. That is when it matters most. That is when persistence is born, when everything in you wants to give up, and you choose instead to believe deeper. There will be days when your emotions contradict your vision, days when fear comes disguised as logic, when the world mocks your inner peace because it cannot yet see the fruit of your faith. But that's exactly when you must dig deeper into the feeling. The world will catch up, but you must not wait for it to do so. You are the forerunner. You are the seed. You are the one carrying the future in the invisible folds of your present. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is not just an emotion, it is a posture, it is a frequency, it is the language that creation responds to without fail. You cannot fool it, you cannot fake it. But you can train yourself to live there slowly, gently, patiently, moment by moment. It begins with simple questions. What would it feel like if it were already done? How would I walk? How would I speak? How would I sleep at night if I truly believed that the breakthrough was already mine? And then you answer those questions not with words, but with embodiment. You walk with peace. You speak with gratitude. You sleep with calm assurance. Not because you are trying to get something, but because you have already received it in the realm where all things begin. That is the mystery of faith. That is the power of persistence. No one can do this for you. You must choose it again and again, especially when it's hardest. You must choose to remain faithful to your inner world, even when the outer world seems barren. You must become more committed to the truth you feel than to the facts you see. This is not delusion, this is creation. Every great artist, inventor, and visionary has lived this truth. They saw what no one else could see and felt what no one else dared to feel, until what they imagined stood fully formed before the eyes of the doubters. So you persist. You close your eyes to what is, and you open your spirit to what must be. You ignore the timeline. You abandon the urge to control. You rest in the knowing that what is already yours, in feeling, cannot be denied forever in form. You treat your vision as sacred. You honor it, not by desperation, but by dignity. You do not beg life to change. You become the change within, and life must respond in kind. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are the miracle in motion. You are the evidence of what it means to trust before you see, to believe before you touch, to embody the end before the journey even begins. That is the kind of persistence that bends time, that accelerates manifestation, that rewrites reality. It is not loud. It is not flashy. It is quiet, steady, divine. So let your heart remain fixed. Let your imagination remain rich. Let your spirit remain firm. You are not here to be tossed by the winds of chance or the judgments of others. You are here to stand still and know, to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled until the dream that lived only in you becomes undeniable to all. And when it does, they will call it destiny, but you will know the truth. You didn't stumble upon it. You remained in it long enough, deep enough, until it had no choice but to become your life. External circumstances are nothing more than the shadows of inner assumptions. They appear real, concrete, undeniable, but they are only the outpicturing of what has been entertained and accepted within. Everything you see around you, every condition you find yourself in, every so-called limitation, is the harvest of an invisible seed you once planted in thought, in belief, in feeling. It's easy to look at life and say, this is happening to me. But the deeper truth is, it is happening through you, through your awareness, through the quiet agreements you've made with fear, doubt, lack, or even guilt. Change those agreements, and the entire world must reflect a different arrangement. You must begin to see that the world is not separate from you. It is not a fixed reality that you are forced to conform to. It is a mirror, precise and exact, showing you the contents of your consciousness, nothing more and nothing less. If you live in a pattern of being dismissed, overlooked, rejected, or burdened, do not simply attempt to fix those things on the outside. Go inward and ask, what must I believe about myself for this to continue showing up in my world? And once you uncover the answer, you don't fight it, you replace it. Not by arguing with the old belief, but by assuming the new one and making it more real than anything the world currently presents to you. This isn't about blame. It's about power, true power, the kind that is not dependent on external validation or circumstance. You were never a victim of life, only of unconscious imagination. But now that you know, you can no longer pretend that circumstances hold the authority. They do not. They obey, they follow, they respond, and they do so with unwavering loyalty to the blueprint you give them in your internal world. What you assume to be true about yourself, about others, about the future, casts a shadow called reality. And shadows, no matter how sharp or terrifying, cannot exist without light. The light is your awareness, your attention. Wherever you direct that light, a form will appear. So if you keep focusing on what's wrong, what's broken, what's missing, you will continue to see those shadows. But if you turn the light of your awareness toward what is beautiful, true, desirable, and worthy, the shadows must shift. They cannot resist a change in light. They cannot hold their shape when the one casting them has changed his posture. You don't change the mirror by scratching the glass. You change the reflection by changing the face it reflects. The same is true in life. Trying to control or manipulate outer events without tending to the inner self is like trying to fix the reflection while ignoring the source. But when you begin to assume a new identity, to see yourself as chosen, blessed, successful, healed, and whole, you don't need to beg the world to treat you differently. The world must comply because it no longer has permission to do otherwise. The contract has been rewritten. There is no delay in this law. The moment you change your assumption, the reality begins to change. But understand this: appearances may lag. The old shadows may still linger for a time, like echoes in an empty hall. Do not let that discourage you. Let it strengthen your resolve. Just as the sun rises long before its warmth is felt, your shift has already occurred the moment you made the decision to feel differently. Persist in the new assumption, and soon the evidence will catch up with the essence. If life is showing you struggle, ask yourself, what assumption am I living with that makes this struggle necessary? Is there a belief I haven't questioned, a fear I've secretly agreed to? And most importantly, what would I rather believe? What would I rather feel right now as truth? You don't need to fight the current situation. You need only to stop feeding it with attention and instead nourish the inner image that contradicts it. Feel it with such depth that the old world begins to crumble, not by force, but by irrelevance. When you assume something new and refuse to depart from it, the circumstances that once defined your life begin to lose their grip. What once seemed like an immovable obstacle starts to feel like a story that no longer fits. People treat you differently. Doors open. Situations rearrange themselves, and not because of luck or effort, but because you've changed the only thing that ever truly mattered: your state of consciousness. The outer world is not your master. It is your servant. It waits on your command. Whether you issue that command in fear or in faith, do not underestimate the power of a single sustained assumption. Imagine wearing a new identity like a garment, feeling it wrap around you, fit you, comfort you. At first it may feel unfamiliar. Your mind may resist, saying, "But this isn't who I really am." That is only the echo of the old self, protesting its demise. Ignore it. Keep wearing the new feeling until it becomes second nature, until it is no longer a dream but your default, until the world no longer startles you with blessings because they feel completely normal. You will find that as you remain loyal to this inner shift, the people, events, and even chance occurrences that show up in your life will begin to align with your new inner script. Opportunities that once passed you by will now recognize you. The world will reflect back a reality so seamless, so natural, that you may forget you ever lived another way. And that is how you know the change was real. Not when something outside shifts, but when your reaction to the outside has transformed completely. Stop chasing shadows. Stop negotiating with circumstances as though they have authority. They are nothing more than whispers of the past, trying to hold on to a role they no longer play. Turn within. Feel differently, assume differently, and then watch, not with desperation, but with quiet certainty, as the world bends to mirror the light you now carry within. That is the only power that has ever mattered. And that is the power you've always had. You command reality through inner certainty, not through effort, not through struggle, and not by convincing others of your worth. The true architect of your life is not the outer world, but the inner one. The moment you become certain of something within, the outer world is placed under divine instruction to mirror that certainty. It may not come instantly, but it will come inevitably. Because inner conviction has a weight and a frequency that reality cannot ignore. You don't wait for life to affirm your belief. You live from that belief so deeply, so consistently, that life has no choice but to reflect it. Most people misunderstand the nature of reality. They think it is fixed, separate, indifferent. They believe things just happen, that people succeed by chance, or that conditions must change before they can feel secure or worthy or fulfilled. But the real truth is that reality is malleable. It is fluid, not frozen. It listens to the frequency of your inner world, responding not to your words, but to your state. The vibration of certainty or doubt, power or fear, abundance or lack. What you embody is what you attract, not what you hope for. Hope is weak when it is not grounded in identity, but certainty. Quiet, calm, relentless certainty is magnetic. Think of certainty not as arrogance, but as alignment. You are not forcing anything. You are simply refusing to abandon your truth. The truth you have seen in your imagination, the reality you've dared to feel before it ever appeared, that truth becomes your new foundation. And once you settle into it, you stop asking questions like how will it happen or when will it come. Those questions dissolve in the presence of true knowing, because when you know something is done within, you no longer look for proof, you become the proof. And others can feel it. The energy of someone who carries inner certainty is unmistakable. They don't speak in desperation or neediness. They don't seek validation or try to impress. They move differently. They exude a quiet power, a presence that announces, I am no longer negotiating with life. I've already received what I asked for, and now I simply walk it out. You've met people like this. They're not loud, but you can't ignore them. Their presence shifts the room, not because they are better, but because they are aligned. When you hold a vision of yourself as healed, loved, successful, or abundant, and you feel it as already true, you begin to emit a signal that calls forth the matching conditions. Life hears you not through noise, but through vibration. So many people scream their desires while vibrating in lack. They declare faith while clinging to doubt. But this is not about what you say out loud. It is about what you accept as already real in your quiet moments. What do you assume when no one is watching? That is the true measure of your power. To command reality, you must train your inner eye to see what the outer eyes cannot. You must feel the future as now, experience the outcome in advance, and remain unmoved when nothing seems to change. This is where most fall away. They say they believe, but the moment life delays or contradicts their vision, they collapse into old thoughts, old emotions, old identities. But those who truly rise, those who manifest great change, are those who hold fast in silence, who nurture their inner world like a sacred fire, no matter the winds outside. You cannot create something new while still identifying with the old. You must let go of the version of you who needed permission, who sought approval, who doubted their worth. That version can't come with you. To carry certainty, you must leave behind confusion. To live from abundance, you must stop reacting from lack. This is not easy, but it is simple. It requires discipline, not effort. It requires devotion to your inner truth, not obsession with your outer result. Imagine someone who knows they are going to win long before the scoreboard says so. Their body language changes. Their speech changes. Their choices reflect the outcome they already believe in. This is how you must walk with your dream, as if it is already yours, as if nothing needs to be added, only revealed. And the more you carry this energy, the more life begins to unfold in ways that feel like alignment. You will notice synchronicities, encounters, opportunities. Even obstacles will come bearing secret blessings. And why? Because your certainty has restructured the way life relates to you. The world is no longer responding to who you used to be. It is responding to who you have dared to become in spirit. And once the outer world catches up to your inner truth, it no longer feels like a miracle. It feels like justice, like the natural result of a soul who refused to bow to circumstance and instead chose to rise in quiet knowing. Commanding reality is not about control. It is about trust. A trust so deep that you don't waver when things seem slow or silent. You no longer chase. You no longer plead. You no longer doubt. Your comeback is a natural consequence of self-alignment. It doesn't need to be forced, orchestrated, or begged into existence. It flows when you stop resisting and start becoming. Life doesn't respond to noise, it responds to clarity. And clarity arises when the inner self is aligned with the truth of who you already are, not with the fear of who you were. The reason so many people struggle to make a return after falling is because they are still trying to rebuild with the identity that fell apart. But the new chapter doesn't require an upgrade of the old self. It requires the emergence of a new self entirely. Alignment is not something you do, it's a state you enter. It's a return to stillness, to truth, to that silent voice within you that already knows you are not broken. The self that fell, the self that was rejected, the self that was betrayed, that is not your true self. That was only a shadow playing out a belief you once accepted. But now, with awareness, you are called to rise, not as a reaction to the world, but as a reflection of who you now choose to be. The comeback is not about proving them wrong, it's about proving yourself right. That quiet, deeper self who whispered all along, "You are more than this." When your thoughts, emotions, assumptions, and identity come into agreement, something powerful happens. Life starts to flow again. You don't have to manipulate it or chase it, you simply attract it. Because you are no longer fragmented within. The scattered parts of you, the doubter, the dreamer, the fearful child, the disappointed adult, they all begin to come home to a center that is no longer moved by circumstance. You are no longer at war with yourself. And that inner peace is the soil from which everything begins to grow. The comeback is not a show, it's not a performance, it's not a public display of vengeance or success. It's a quiet return to alignment where you begin to think from the end instead of striving toward it. You stop chasing outcomes, you start dwelling in outcomes. You live as if the healing, the wealth, the love, the peace, whatever it is, has already settled into your life. And by doing so, you create a magnetic field around you that draws the outer world into harmony with your inner state. When you're out of alignment, everything feels hard. You try to force people to change, to see you, to give you what you think you need. But when you're aligned, you need nothing from the outside to validate you. You walk with a knowing that the right things will arrive at the right time because you have already arrived within. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. You have already said yes to the future, yes to the blessing, yes to the breakthrough. And that yes echoes into reality like a divine command. The comeback isn't loud. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't announce itself with noise. It hums. It glows. It feels like returning home to something you forgot you always had. You stop trying to be powerful and instead realize you were never powerless. You stop striving to be healed and instead realize you were never truly broken, only misaligned. And when this realization becomes your foundation, everything that once seemed impossible begins to move toward you, as if called by your very presence. People will say you changed, but the truth is you remembered. You realigned. You returned to the blueprint that had been buried under layers of fear, trauma, and conditioning. And now the comeback isn't even your focus. Alignment is. You wake up each day not asking, how can I fix this, but how can I be more of who I really am today? And that question leads to a life that unfolds with grace instead of strain. You begin to notice the difference in small things first. Your breath feels deeper, your posture shifts. The inner voice of fear becomes quieter. You find yourself smiling at the silence. You feel less anxious about timelines. And then suddenly, without effort, the right people appear. The right doors open. The burdens lift. And it isn't because you fought harder, it's because you became congruent. The inside and outside finally match. This is not magic in the way the world understands magic. It is spiritual law, the law that what you accept inwardly must express outwardly. It is the end of resistance, the death of struggle, and the birth of flow. And once you taste this state, you no longer want to control life, you want to dance with it. You want to move in rhythm with what is already yours, not out of desperation, but out of joy, out of remembrance. There is a version of you who never fell, who never doubted, who never broke. That version still exists. And alignment is how you return to it, not by reliving the past, but by stepping fully into the now that holds all possibilities. When you stop reacting to the old story and start embodying the new one, you realize the comeback was never about going back to who you were. It was about discovering who you always were, beneath the dust, beneath the pain, beneath the illusions. Your only task now is to live from that space, to allow your thoughts, emotions, and actions to serve the vision that has been planted in you, not the history that tried to bury you. And if you can do that, not once, but consistently, the comeback will write itself. You won't need to force the chapter, you'll simply be the author again. Calm, centered, certain, and as you live in this state, you'll look around one day and realize the world has shifted, not because you pushed it, but because you aligned with the part of you that no longer needed to. Everything you could ever desire already exists. It is not coming from somewhere out there. It is summoned from within. The secret is not to wait for the thing to come, but to assume its presence now. To act as if you already have it, not out of pretense, but from knowing that imagination is the only reality. You are not begging for change, you are creating it. And you create not with effort, but with inner acceptance. What you accept as true within, sooner or later, becomes your experience without. Feel it now. Not tomorrow, not after the evidence shows up. Feel it now, because the feeling is the course. The feeling is the bridge. The world responds to your inner state. When you walk into a room with the confidence of already being who you wish to be, you shift the frequency of your life. You become one with that version of yourself. It is not wishful thinking, it is spiritual law. What you are conscious of being, you become. So if you desire love, feel love now. If you desire wealth, move as one who is already abundant. Don't ask how it will come, know that it already has. Every moment you dwell in the state of your fulfilled desire, you impress it upon the subconscious mind, which molds your outer world accordingly. You are not reacting to the world is reacting to you. Your inner conversations, your emotional tones, your habitual assumptions, these are your true prayers. So persist in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, clothe yourself in the emotion of the outcome, carry the tone of already having, let it be natural to you, let it be real. For when it becomes more natural to dwell in the end than to doubt its arrival, you have entered the creative space where all things are made. You do not need permission, you do not need signs. The only sign you ever need is the feeling itself. The feeling is the evidence. Live in the end, and the end will live in you. Everything you desire already exists, not out there in the distant future, nor in someone else's hands, and certainly not beyond your reach. It exists within you. The outer world, which you have been taught to chase and mold and struggle with, is nothing more than a mirror of your internal state. The idea that you must wait, work harder, or be chosen in order to experience what you want is an illusion. There is a deeper truth, a truth that says imagination is not just fantasy or escape, but the very fabric of reality itself. Imagination is the womb of creation. It is where the invisible becomes visible. Every invention, every work of art, every relationship, every home, every opportunity, before it was touched, seen, or held, it was first imagined. So it is with your desires. What you want is not something to chase after with effort and strain, but something to realize is already present within the imagination. When you imagine, You are not daydreaming. You are touching the blueprint of the real. What you imagine and accept as true begins to harden into fact. Most people live their lives reacting to what they see, unaware that what they see is only a delayed reflection of their past assumptions. They wait for the world to give them permission to feel successful, to feel loved, to feel secure, but the world never leads, it follows. The truth is that you are the operant power. Your inner world leads, your outer world follows. If you imagine yourself to be abundant and persist in that inner experience, life must conform to it, not because you forced it to, but because it is law. You were never meant to look outside yourself for confirmation. That confirmation comes after the assumption, not before. If you wait to see it before you believe it, you are standing still in consciousness, perpetually affirming what already is. But when you dare to believe it before you see it, when you act as if it is already yours, you awaken the creative power within. You step into the place of true causation, where the unseen becomes seen, not through chance, but through spiritual certainty. Imagination is not limited by facts or circumstances. It does not need evidence to begin. It is the evidence. The moment you accept your imagined reality as true, you shift dimensions. You enter into the version of you who already has what you long for. And if you continue to dwell there, if you nurture that inner experience with feeling, attention, and repetition, it must express itself outwardly. Life cannot do otherwise, because life is only responding to what you are conscious of being. Think of it this way. If you put on a new outfit and walk into a room, you do not need to explain yourself. People will simply respond to what they see. Likewise, when you wear a new concept of yourself, when you embody the version of you who has already received, you don't need to beg for change. You don't need to push. You don't need to strive. The world begins to respond to that energy automatically, as surely as a mirror reflects your image. Imagination is the only place where true freedom exists. In the outer world, you may face limits. You may be told no. You may encounter delay. But within the imagination, nothing is denied to you. You can sit quietly and become whoever you choose. You can close your eyes and walk into the house you desire. You can feel the keys in your hand. You can hear the voices of those congratulating you. You can taste the success. And as you do, something shifts. Not outside, but inside. And that shift becomes the seed of your new reality. This is not wishful thinking or escapism. This is spiritual law in action. The world cannot resist the one who knows. When you know something is true inwardly, when you feel it, believe it, and live from it, it begins to rearrange itself around your assumption. You don't need to figure out the how. You don't need to make it happen. Your job is to assume it, to feel it, to live in it. The how is not your concern. The how is the domain of the unseen forces that are always working in harmony with your state of consciousness. Your desires were never random. They are messages from your deeper self calling you to remember who you really are, the one who creates by assuming, by imagining, by feeling. You are not here to struggle for scraps. You are here to remember that everything you seek is already yours the moment you accept it within. When you see it in your mind's eye and feel it with your heart, it is done. The world may take time to catch up, but it must. And so, live from the end. Don't ask when it will come. Don't beg for proof. Just dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let your mornings begin with the joy of already having. Let your nights end with gratitude for what is already done. Let your conversations reflect the confidence of one who knows. Let your imagination be your home, not a place you visit in doubt or desperation, but a place you live from in quiet knowing. Every time you return to that place, where the desire is already realized, you are feeding it. you are watering the seed. And just like the seed in the soil, you don't need to dig it up and check it every day. You trust the process. You rest in the assurance that what you planted in imagination must rise and bear fruit in the physical world, not by accident, but by divine law. So take the desire, wrap it in feeling, and assume it's done. Not tomorrow, not someday, now, because now is all there is. And what you accept now, you experience later. The truth is simple but profound. Imagination is the only reality. What you do within creates what you live without. Feeling is the secret key that unlocks the invisible door between what you imagine and what you experience. It is not enough to merely think of a desire, to picture it once and hope it manifests. Thought alone is like a spark. It flashes briefly, then disappears. But feeling is the fire that sustains it, fuels it, and transforms it into reality. Feeling is the active agent of creation, the bridge between the unseen and the seen. Whatever you feel to be true, whether be joy or fear, wealth or lack, success or failure, life responds not to what you say, but to what you feel as real. There is a great difference between thinking of a thing and thinking from it. Thinking of something keeps it at a distance. It places your desire in the realm of the future, separate from you. But thinking from it means you have already assumed its presence. You are no longer hoping for it, you are living it internally. And this internal movement is made possible through feeling. To feel yourself already in possession of your desire is to claim it as yours in consciousness. And when you do, it begins to move toward you in form. You do not need to force anything to happen. You only need to feel it as though it already is. This feeling is not dependent on the outer world. In fact, if you are waiting for something in the external world to make you feel successful, fulfilled, or loved, you are handing your creative power away. The feeling must come first. The feeling is the cause, everything else is the effect. If you feel lack, if you feel wholeness, abundance, and gratitude, life begins to mirror those qualities back to you in ways both subtle and undeniable. This is not about pretending. It is about embodying the inner reality so fully that the outer must align. The world may tell you to be realistic, to wait, to be cautious. But reality, as most understand it, is merely a collection of past assumptions hardened into form. You are not bound by that. You are not here to be a servant to what is. You are here to be a master of what will be. And that mastery begins with your ability to feel the desired state as real before any outer evidence appears. Feeling is magnetic. It attracts like to like. When you dwell in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you become a vibrational match to the life you want. Opportunities begin to show up. People enter your path. Events seem to rearrange themselves with perfect timing. But this is not coincidence, it is law. You are never waiting for life to give you something. You are only waiting to align with the feeling of already having it. Once you do, everything else begins to flow from that alignment. You do not have to figure out the logistics. You do not need to worry about the steps. Those are distractions from the deeper work. Your work is internal. Your work is to assume the feeling of the fulfilled desire and remain faithful to it, even when the outer world contradicts it, even when nothing seems to be happening, especially then, because it is in the silence, in the invisibility, that creation is taking place. The seed does not shout when it grows, but the roots are spreading. The change is happening. And your feeling is the soil from which the fruit will grow. Let go of needing the world to prove anything to you. The world is not your source. Consciousness is. The world is the shadow. Feeling is the substance. When you grasp this, you stop reacting and start creating. You stop asking when and start knowing now. Because when you feel it now, it becomes yours now in consciousness, and in time it must appear in form. It is inevitable. It is not wishful thinking. It is the operation of spiritual law. Consider how easily you have accepted unwanted feelings in the past. How quickly you have believed in limitation, in fear, in doubt, and life, ever obedient, reflected it. What would happen if you reversed the process? If you decided to dwell in the feelings of joy, success, abundance, not because you see them, but because you choose them. You are always feeling something. The question is, are you feeling deliberately or by default? Deliberate feeling is the path of conscious creation. It is the art of selecting your emotional state as carefully as you would choose a precious garment. You wear the feeling of the person you want to be. You walk in it, breathe in it, sleep in it. It becomes your second skin. And as you persist, what once seemed like fantasy begins to feel like the most natural thing in the world. That is the moment it is closest to manifesting, when it no longer feels foreign but familiar, when you don't question whether it's coming because you know it already has. This knowing does not need to shout, it does not need to convince. It is quiet, steady, and confident. It lives in the heart, not the intellect, and it speaks in the language of feeling. When you feel rich, you are rich in consciousness. When you feel loved, you are love embodied. When you feel whole, you are no longer seeking, because you have become what you sought. There is no waiting when you feel it now. Waiting implies separation, feeling implies union. Feel now, and you collapse the distance between the desire and its fulfillment. Feel now, and time becomes irrelevant. Feel now, and the end is already achieved in the mind. And from this achievement, all things flow. Do not chase the dream, become it. Do not strive for the future, live from it. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and hold to it with quiet conviction. Even when doubts arise, return to the feeling. Even when appearances argue against you, return to the feeling. It is your anchor. It is your creative tool. It is the beginning and the end. The world around you may not change overnight, but the change begins the moment you change within. The moment you feel the reality of your desire, the world is set in motion to bring it into being. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it, you allowed it, you accepted it as already done. And so, let feeling be your guide. Let it be your compass, your teacher, your truth. For when you feel it now, you no longer need to ask, to hope, or to wait. You simply rest in the knowing that it is already yours. To act as if you already have what you desire is to become a conscious participant in the creative process of life. It is not about pretending or playing a role for the world to see. It is about internally adopting the posture, energy, and identity of the person who already possesses the outcome you long for. When you act from this state, not towards it, you change the entire quality of your vibration. And this vibration is what determines your reality. Your world is not shaped by effort alone, but by the assumptions you live from moment to moment. When you act as if you already are what you wish to be, you shift from a state of lack to a state of fulfillment. The difference may seem subtle, but it is profound. Acting from lack says, I want it, but I don't have it. Acting from fulfillment says, it is mine and I'm living it now. The former continues to reinforce the distance between you and your desire. The latter closes the gap. It signals to your subconscious that you no longer need to reach for the future. You are embodying the end now. This embodiment sets invisible forces in motion. People, opportunities, and circumstances begin to rearrange themselves to match your new inner stance. This is not a technique to manipulate reality. It is a way of aligning with truth. The truth is that all possibilities exist now. What you desire is not waiting in some far-off place. It is present and alive in the invisible realm of imagination. When you act as if you are not trying to make it real, you are acknowledging that it is already real, even if unseen. And by assuming its reality, you become the vessel through which it is allowed to express. This requires a subtle form of faith, not blind belief, but the kind of faith that comes from knowing the unseen is just as real as the seen. When you act as if, You are not asking life to give you something. You are saying, I already have it. I am it. This creates a powerful shift in consciousness. You stop seeking and start expressing. You stop needing and start creating. You stop reacting and begin initiating. You stop being a servant to circumstance and become its master. To act as if is not to fake confidence or wealth or love. It is to feel into the identity of the one who is already whole, already free, already blessed. You begin to ask yourself, if I already had this, how would I carry myself? How would I speak? How would I think, breathe, walk, or respond? And then you begin to do those things, not out of desperation or pressure, but because it feels natural, inevitable, and right. This is how you recondition your inner world. This is how you make the invisible visible. Every act carries a vibration. If you act from scarcity, even if you speak words of abundance, the signal you send is one of lack. But if you act from sufficiency, from joy, from wholeness, then that is what you communicate to life. And life, ever faithful, responds. You are not rewarded for effort. You are mirrored by vibration. So let every small act you take be infused with the energy of having. Every step you take is either confirming that you don't have it or affirming that you do. This is not about grand gestures. It's about subtle, consistent shifts in behavior and feeling. The way you get dressed, the way you treat your body, the way you handle money, the way you talk about your dreams, all of it either strengthens or weakens your assumption. If you want to be healthy, how does health behave? If you want to be successful, how does success respond to setbacks? If you want to be loved, how does love carry itself? You do not wait to feel worthy. You decide you are worthy now and let your actions flow from that decision. The world may say, show me and I'll believe it. But the inner law says, believe it and it will show you. This is why acting as if is so powerful. It places the cause within you, not outside of you. It invites you to become the source rather than the seeker. You stop looking to the world for confirmation and start offering it to yourself. You become the author of your story, not a reader of someone else's script. This inner transformation does not go unnoticed by the outer world. Your energy changes, your confidence rises, not from ego, but from alignment. You begin to draw experiences that match your new identity. People may not understand what changed, but they will feel it. Because when you walk through the world as if your dream has already come true, the world starts to bend to that conviction. It is not magic, it is law. And even if nothing changes immediately on the surface, something is shifting deeply within. You are creating new patterns, new beliefs, new neural pathways. You are telling your subconscious, this is who I am now. And the subconscious, without judgment or resistance, accepts it and goes to work making it true in your life. It brings ideas, insights, and nudges. It draws new people into your experience. It removes obstacles in ways you could never plan. Acting as if is a declaration of trust. It says, I am no longer waiting. I am living from the end. You are no longer reacting to life. You are originating it from your inner state. You become cause, not effect. And in doing so, you step into your power. You stop pushing and start knowing. You stop pushing and start allowing. You stop fearing and start embodying. Every time you act from the end, you reinforce it. You strengthen the bridge between the seen and the unseen. You make the invisible familiar, and the familiar becomes inevitable. You are no longer surprised by good things. You expect them, not from arrogance, but from alignment, not from entitlement, but from understanding. Because you have already received it in your heart. And once it is received within, it must be expressed without. So when doubt arises, return to the feeling. When fear whispers, but it's not here yet, respond not with panic, but with quiet confidence. It's already mine. Let your life be a living answer to the question, what would I do if I already had it? Let your actions become declarations. Let your posture, your choices, your rhythm reflect the reality you have claimed in consciousness. And soon, the world will have no choice but to echo back the truth you have dared to live. When you cultivate the feeling of already having what you desire, you are engaging the most powerful force of creation available to you, the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is not about mere positive thinking or hopeful visualization. It is the conscious generation of a state of being that reflects your desired outcome as already complete. Feeling is the key, not because it is emotional, but because it is vibrational. Your feelings are the language by which your subconscious mind receives instructions, and your subconscious, being the creative medium, responds faithfully to whatever you impress upon it with deep conviction. You cannot create something new while feeling the absence of it. When you feel lack, you project that lack outward. When you feel abundance, even if your outer world appears unchanged, the foundation of that new experience begins to form. To feel the reality of something that is not yet seen is not a denial of the facts. It is an acknowledgement of truth beyond appearance. It is the recognition that the seen world is a shadow cast by your inner state. And so you shift your feeling, not by forcing it, but by relaxing into it, imagining it, embodying it, and making it natural to you. The secret lies in allowing the feeling of the end to become familiar. Most people are familiar with the feeling of not having, of striving, of waiting. But when you reverse this and become familiar with the satisfaction, joy, security, and peace of already being the person who has what they once desired, you rewire your inner world. You change your self-concept. You make the new state a home rather than a dream. And because life mirrors back to you who you are being, the outer must begin to match the inner. This is why it is not enough to simply think about your desire, you must feel it. You must allow yourself to emotionally experience the relief, gratitude, and contentment that would naturally arise if your desire were fulfilled right now. If you were already wealthy, how would it feel to wake up in the morning? If you were already in love, how would you carry yourself throughout the day? If you were already healed, how would you move your body, speak, or breathe? These are not idle questions. They are invitations to shift into the frequency of the desired state. The feeling is not something to be reserved for the future. If you delay it, saying, "I'll feel that way once I have it," you place your power outside yourself. But when you claim the feeling now, before any evidence appears, you assert your creative authority. You say to life, "This is who I am," and life responds not to your words, but to your feeling. The outer follows the inner, not the other way around. So often, people wait to feel good until something outside of them changes. They wait for the job offer to feel confident, the relationship to feel loved, the success to feel worthy. But this is backward. The law is feel first, then see. When you feel it now, you summon the conditions that reflect that feeling. You no longer wait to be chosen. You choose yourself. You no longer wait for permission. You no longer wait for the door to open. You become the door. This is not about pretending. Pretending still acknowledges that the desire is not yet real. This is about stepping into the state with sincerity and authenticity, even if only inwardly. It's about knowing that your imagination is not a fantasy. It is the womb of creation. What you feel in imagination is just as real, just as powerful, and often more important than what you observe with your senses. Because the world you see is a reflection, not a cause. The cause is within. The world is just the echo. To feel it now is to short-circuit the doubt that delays manifestation. You don't have to figure out how it will come or when it will come. Those are not your concerns. Your only responsibility is to maintain the feeling of already having it. When you do this, you bring yourself into vibrational harmony with your desire. You are no longer sending mixed signals. You are no longer affirming lack while desiring abundance. You become congruent. You become clear. And clarity is magnetic. Let the feeling guide you, not the circumstances. Even if nothing changes immediately, continue to cultivate the feeling. Let it become your inner atmosphere. Wake up in the feeling. Move through the day in the feeling. Go to sleep in the feeling. Do not measure your progress by external signs. The seed you plant in feeling will take root. The law cannot be broken. What you feel with conviction must take form. It is only a matter of time, and your sustained inner state determines how soon. The power lies in your ability to feel deeply, consistently, and naturally. If the feeling is forced or mechanical, pause and return to the imagination. Ask yourself, what would it feel like if it were already done? And allow that answer to arise, not in your mind, but in your body. Let the emotions flow, joy, peace, love, certainty. Let them settle into you as if they belong. Because they do. You are not borrowing these feelings, you are claiming them as your own. You are not chasing them, you are living them. As this becomes your practice, you'll notice subtle shifts. You'll feel more grounded, more inspired, more guided. You'll see coincidences, synchronicities, and small openings. These are not accidents. They are reflections of your inner world beginning to crystallize in form. Do not dismiss them. Celebrate them. They are proof that your feeling has taken hold. And as you continue, the line between imagination and reality begins to blur. What once felt like wishful thinking now feels inevitable. You no longer question whether it will happen. You know it already has in the invisible. You no longer wonder if you are worthy. You know you are the embodiment of the desire fulfilled. You no longer look outward for confirmation. You become your own evidence. To feel it now is to step into timelessness. You are no longer bound by the linear progression of events. You move beyond waiting and into being. You collapse time by aligning yourself with the end. You begin to live from the conclusion, and that conclusion becomes the cause of every new beginning. Your future self is no longer a distant possibility. It is your present identity. And when you live from that place, the world cannot help but rearrange itself to reflect who you have decided to become. Persistence in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the golden key that unlocks the invisible into the visible. It is not enough to feel it once, to imagine it briefly, or to visit the state of your desire like a guest. You must move into it, live in it, and refuse to leave it no matter what the outer world says. This is the great test of faith. Not faith in an external power, but faith in your own inner reality. The world outside will echo your past assumptions until the new assumption has taken root so deeply within you that it can no longer be denied. At first, the old world may still appear. The shadows of your previous beliefs may linger, trying to tempt you back into doubt, fear, or resignation. But these appearances are not proof of failure. They are merely the final echo of a former state. You do not argue with the echo. You do not chase the reflection. You hold your attention firmly upon the unseen reality you have claimed. You persist in the feeling, knowing that it is not wishful thinking but spiritual law. The outer must conform to the inner. This is not philosophy, it is cause and effect. Persistence is not struggle. It is not effort in the conventional sense. It is not trying to make something happen. It is the quiet, steady refusal to abandon the feeling of already being who you desire to be. It is the gentle returning again and again to the state of the wish fulfilled until that state becomes natural, familiar, and automatic. At first, this may feel like pretending, but over time, it becomes your home. It becomes your identity, and once it becomes your identity, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. The world is a mirror. If you do not like what it shows, do not curse the mirror. Do not demand that it change first. Instead, change the image you are holding within, but not just once, not just during a moment of silence or a burst of inspiration. Change it and keep it changed. Persist in the new self, the new story, the new outcome, until it becomes your dominant state. This is how you break old cycles. This is how you transform your reality, not by fighting the old, but by being faithful to the new. Persistence is power. Most people shift from desire to doubt, from faith to fear, from knowing to hoping. They start strong but fall back into the familiar when nothing seems to change. They let the outer dictate the inner, but you are being called to reverse that. Let the inner dictate the outer. And the only way to do that is through consistency, through repetition, through devotion to the unseen. The subconscious accepts what is impressed upon it through feeling and repetition. So you impress it again and again, not through force, but through steadiness. Every time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are watering the seed. You may not see growth immediately, but beneath the surface something is stirring. The roots are taking hold. The invisible processes are moving. The law is at work, and it will not fail you if you do not abandon it. The only thing that can delay the manifestation of your desire is your own wavering. But when you persist, when you continue to feel as though it is already done, the outcome is inevitable. This is why you must not look to the senses for validation. The senses are always reporting the past. They are not equipped to show you the future that your new state is calling forth. If you judge your progress by what your eyes see and your ears hear, you will be tempted to give up. But when you understand that the real world is the invisible world, the world of assumption, feeling, and imagination, you will no longer be discouraged by temporary appearances. You will stand firm in your new identity, knowing that it must externalize if you do not abandon it. This is not about suppressing doubt or forcing belief. It is about choosing again. Every time your mind returns to the old state, you gently guide it back. Every time fear whispers its old arguments, you don't argue back. You return to the feeling. Every time you feel the pull of anxiety or the pressure of time, you remember, you already have it. You already are it. There is nothing to get, only something to accept, something to embody, something to live. The one who persists is the one who wins, not because they are better or luckier, but because they stayed. They stayed in the unseen. They stayed in the fulfilled state. They did not let the world shake them. They remembered that the world is clay in the hands of imagination, and they became master sculptors, molding reality with their steady inner state. You must live in the end as though there were no other option. You must move through the day with the inner conviction that what you desire is already done. You must feel the relief, the gratitude, the certainty, even when the outer world gives you no reason to feel it. That is the power. That is the magic. That is the point of persistence. Not to beg life for change, but to command it through unwavering assumption. Persistence also rewrites your self-concept. As you stay faithful to the new state, you begin to believe differently about yourself. You start to see yourself not as the one who wants, but as the one who has. You shift from someday to already. You begin to think, speak, and act from this new identity. And this inner shift ripples out into your relationships, your decisions, your opportunities, your entire experience. The outer world bends to the inner self, but only if the inner self remains steady. This is why you must persist, even when nothing seems to be happening, especially then, because that is the moment when the old is dying and the new is gestating. It is the silent space before the breakthrough, and most give up too soon. They retreat just before the outer shifts. But if you hold your ground, if you remain true to the end you have claimed, it will appear. It has to. The law is exact. Feel the wish fulfilled and do not let go of that feeling. Carry it with you in the morning and into the night. Let it saturate your thoughts, your actions, your posture, your tone. Let it become the lens through which you see the world. Let it become so real within that the outer world has no choice but to follow. And when it does, you will not be surprised. You will recognize it as the reflection of what you have persistently lived inwardly. You are not waiting for reality to change. Reality is waiting for you to remain.